third party lost control when he finally confronted her about the secret she'd been hiding. You never told me why you. My beloved child, something shifted the moment he finally asked the question she had spent so long avoiding. It wasn't a casual conversation anymore. He had been noticing the small inconsistencies, the sudden changes in her answers, and the strange silence whenever your name somehow entered the conversation. For a long time, he convinced himself that he was imagining it. But then one missing piece suddenly connected everything. He looked directly at her and said, "You never told me why you," and before he could even finish, her expression changed. That unfinished sentence carried more truth than everything she had told him before. Because she knew exactly what he was about to ask. Don't skip, because what happened immediately afterward changed the entire direction of this story. She tried to move the conversation somewhere else, but this time he wouldn't let the question disappear. He had finally realized that the story he had been given about you was incomplete. Certain details had been left out. Certain conversations had been presented differently. And suddenly, he began wondering whether the distance between you and him had ever been completely his own choice. That thought stayed with him. The more he remembered, the more questions appeared. Why had she reacted so strongly whenever he mentioned you? Why had she always seemed uncomfortable when he remembered something meaningful about your connection? And most importantly, why had she never explained what truly happened before everything changed? Stay till the end, because the answer begins with one detail he remembered at exactly the right moment. What she didn't realize was that he had already discovered something before confronting her. A small detail from the past had resurfaced, and it contradicted something she had repeatedly told him. At first, he thought it meant nothing. Then he compared it with another memory. Suddenly, the timeline no longer made sense. Something huge is waiting for you, because this was the moment he stopped looking at the situation emotionally and started looking at it clearly. He remembered how naturally things once felt between you and him before outside opinions became louder. He remembered a conversation that seemed harmless at the time but now sounded completely different. And then came the realization that shook him most: she seemed to know something about his feelings for you before he had ever admitted those feelings openly. How could she have known? He asked her. Silence. He asked again. Another incomplete answer. That was when he understood that the secret wasn't simply about something she had done, it was about why she had done it. And that why pointed directly toward you. She had noticed something between you too much earlier than he realized. Something she believed could eventually become impossible to ignore. Don't skip now, because her next words didn't calm him down. They confirmed that his questions were getting dangerously close to the truth. She finally admitted that there was a reason she had been uncomfortable with your connection from the beginning, but she still refused to reveal the entire reason. And that hesitation told him more than a perfect explanation ever could. Then came the once-in-a-lifetime revelation she never expected him to uncover. He realized that the secret wasn't hidden because you had done something wrong. It had been hidden because the truth about you could have changed a decision he made long ago. Suddenly, everything looked different. The conversations. The misunderstandings. The moments when he almost reached out but changed his mind. He began questioning how many of those decisions were truly based on what he knew, and how many were based on what someone else wanted him to believe. Stay till the end, because this is where his focus completely shifted. Instead of asking her what she thought about you, he started asking himself what he remembered about you. Your words. Your consistency. The way certain moments between you never quite disappeared from his mind. And for the first time, he stopped allowing another person's version of the story to speak louder than his own experience. She could see the change happening right in front of her. The more he remembered, the quieter she became. Then he asked one final question, one she clearly wasn't prepared for. He wanted to know exactly what she had learned about you before everything between you and him changed. She stared at him for a long moment, knowing there was no easy way around it anymore. And just when he thought she would avoid the truth again, she finally said something that made him realize the biggest secret had never been about the past at all. It was about what she believed would happen if you and he ever found your way back to each other. Something huge is waiting for you, because what she reveals next explains why your connection frightened her enough to hide the one truth he should have known from the very beginning. There was one truth she could no longer keep behind carefully chosen words, and the moment he saw hesitation in her eyes, he understood that his question had reached the exact place she never wanted him to reach. She finally admitted that she had noticed his connection with you long before he understood how deeply it affected him. She had watched the way his energy changed whenever someone mentioned you, the way he remembered tiny details about you without even trying, and the way every attempt to completely move forward somehow brought his thoughts back to the same person, you. But that wasn't the revelation that left him speechless. Don't skip, because she then admitted that there had been a moment when she realized you weren't simply someone from his past. You were the person he compared everything else to without realizing it. Suddenly, his unfinished question returned, "You never told me why you." Now he finally understood what belonged at the end of that sentence. Why had she kept this from him? Why had she allowed him to believe something completely different? She looked away because the answer was uncomfortable. She believed that if he ever understood the full truth about your connection, his choices would change. And now, standing there with everything beginning to make sense, that change was already happening, but the next revelation went even deeper. She told him there had been one particular conversation about you that she had never mentioned before. Someone had asked him about the person who had affected him more deeply than anyone else, and although he tried to avoid answering directly, his reaction gave everything away. She noticed it. She remembered it. And from that moment forward, she understood something he had been refusing to admit to himself. Stay till the end, because this is where the story turns completely. He suddenly remembered that same conversation. He remembered the pause before his answer. He remembered your face appearing in his mind. And he remembered changing the subject because admitting the truth felt too complicated at the time. Now he realized she had seen through that silence. She knew. She had always known. Something huge is waiting for you, because he then asked the question she feared most. If you knew how I really felt, why didn't you tell me what you knew? This time there was no quick response. The silence stretched longer, and inside that silence he began understanding the answer himself. She wasn't protecting him from you. She was protecting the future she wanted from the possibility that he might choose differently once he saw everything clearly, and then something inside him changed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It was quieter than that, but far more powerful. He stopped asking her to explain his feelings to him. He already knew what they were. The memories he had tried to place behind him suddenly felt different because he could finally separate what he genuinely experienced with you from everything he had later been told about it. Don't skip, because one final memory came back with unbelievable clarity, a moment when he almost contacted you, but something she said made him reconsider. At the time, he believed her words. Now he asked where that information had actually come from. She couldn't give him a clear answer. That was the moment he realized he needed to hear the truth from the one person whose side of the story had been missing, you. Stay till the end, because his next choice was something she never expected. He stopped the conversation, walked away with one question repeating in his mind, and began considering whether the only way to finally understand everything was to speak to you directly. Something huge is waiting for you, because just before he left, she finally called after him and revealed one last detail, something about you she had known for a long time, something she had never told him, and something that could completely change what he decides to do next. The word she called after him made him stop instantly, because this was no longer about an old misunderstanding. It was about something she had known while he was making choices without the complete truth. She admitted that there had been a moment when you were closer to reaching him than he ever realized. Something had shifted behind the scenes, and she knew that if he discovered it, he would start questioning everything. Don't skip, because that is exactly what happened. He turned around and asked her to explain every detail without changing the subject. Her confidence disappeared. She finally revealed that she had seen something in your actions that completely contradicted the version of you he had been encouraged to believe. You had not simply forgotten him. You had not become completely indifferent. There had been signs that your connection still mattered, but those signs never reached him in the way they should have. His expression changed because suddenly he remembered all the times he wondered why your story seemed to end without a real ending. Now the missing pieces were appearing one after another. Stay till the end, because he asked her one question that changed the atmosphere completely. What else didn't you tell me? She hesitated, and that hesitation became his answer before she even spoke. There was more. Much more. And something huge is waiting for you, because the next secret was connected to the exact moment he almost chose you. He remembered that period clearly now. There was a day when he had seriously considered putting everything aside and finding a way to speak with you. He had replayed your conversations, remembered the things left unsaid, and wondered whether walking away had been the biggest mistake he had made. But before he acted, he heard something that convinced him you had already closed that chapter. Now he looked at her and asked where that information came from. She couldn't give him a straight answer. Don't skip. His mind immediately connected the missing pieces. What if the decision he thought was based on reality had actually been based on an assumption? What if both of you had been waiting for clarity while each believed the other had already moved on? That possibility changed everything. She finally admitted that she had interpreted certain things instead of actually knowing them. And that was when he realized how much power he had given another person's interpretation. Stay till the end, because instead of continuing the argument, he became unexpectedly calm. He no longer needed to win the conversation. He needed the truth. He said there was only one person who could tell him what you actually felt, what you actually knew, and what really happened from your side. For the first time, she understood that she was losing control of the story, not because he was choosing blindly, but because he had decided to verify everything for himself, then came the revelation she had been holding back from the beginning. She finally admitted why your connection had unsettled her so much. She had seen that even after time, distance, confusion, and unanswered questions, he never spoke about anyone else the same way he spoke about you. Something about you remained unfinished inside him. He could pretend it was gone, distract himself, or build an entirely different life around the silence, but one question always remained: what would have happened if you two had received the truth instead of assumptions? Something huge is waiting for you, because hearing this from her made him recognize what he had refused to recognize himself. The reason your memory kept returning wasn't simply nostalgia. It was because he never received a real answer. Don't skip, because his next move became clear. He wanted to hear your side directly, without another voice between you, without anyone translating your feelings, and without old assumptions deciding the outcome. He reached for his phone, paused, and stared at your name longer than he expected. Stay till the end, because just before he could make his choice, she revealed one final secret she believed would stop him, and instead, it gave him the strongest reason yet to finally discover what had truly happened between you. What she revealed next was supposed to make him put the phone down, but it did the exact opposite. She told him there had been another moment, one she had deliberately avoided mentioning, when your name came up and he reacted before he could hide what he truly felt. That reaction had stayed in her mind because it proved something she never wanted to accept: whatever happened between you and him had never been completely resolved. Don't skip, because he immediately asked why she had waited until now to tell him. Her answer was incomplete, but he no longer needed perfect words to understand what was happening. She had been afraid that one honest conversation between you and him could undo every assumption that had kept you apart. Suddenly, the unfinished sentence from the confrontation returned even stronger. You never told me why you. He could finally finish it in his own mind. Why had she kept deciding which pieces of the truth he deserved to know? Why had she allowed assumptions to become answers? And why had she become so unsettled whenever he tried to understand you for himself? Stay till the end, because instead of reacting emotionally, he did something she never expected: he became completely calm. That calmness changed everything. He wasn't trying to prove her wrong anymore. He was preparing to discover the truth without anyone standing between you and him. Then she made one final attempt to explain herself. She said she believed she was preventing a situation that would eventually become complicated, because she had noticed how strongly your presence affected him. But those words created the opposite result. He realized that if your connection had meant nothing, nobody would have needed to interfere with his understanding of it. Something huge is waiting for you, because another memory suddenly returned. He remembered asking about you once and receiving an answer that made him believe you wanted nothing more to do with him. Now he asked her exactly how she knew that. Silence. He asked whether those words had ever come directly from you. Again, silence. Don't skip, because that silence broke the last piece of certainty he had been holding on to. He understood that he had spent too long treating second-hand information like undeniable truth. And suddenly the question wasn't whether he should keep thinking about you. The question was why he had never simply asked you himself. Every old memory began looking different. Every unfinished conversation felt important again. Every moment when he nearly reached out now carried a completely different meaning. Stay till the end, because he finally said something she never expected to hear: I need to know what was real. And once those words left his mouth, she understood she could no longer control where his questions would lead. He looked at his phone again, but this time there was no confusion in his expression. There was clarity. He wasn't promising a perfect ending or pretending the past could instantly disappear. He simply knew that the truth deserved one honest chance. And then came the most surprising revelation of all. She admitted that she had always suspected you would be the one person he could never completely forget. Not because someone told her that, but because she had watched him try. She had seen him move forward while still becoming unusually quiet whenever your name appeared. She had seen him compare new experiences with memories he never discussed openly. And she knew that if he ever discovered the missing truth, he might finally understand why you remained somewhere in his heart after everything else changed. Don't skip, because this was the moment he stopped looking backward and started thinking about what he could do next. Something huge is waiting for you. His finger hovered over your name, and for the first time he wasn't asking what anyone else thought he should do. He was asking what he needed to know for himself. The third party could feel the entire situation slipping beyond her influence, because the secret that was supposed to keep him uncertain had created something much stronger: determination. And just before he made his next move, one final detail came back to him, a sentence you once said that he had misunderstood completely. Now, after everything he had learned, those words suddenly carried a completely different meaning, and what he realizes about them next could become the turning point neither of you ever expected. That forgotten sentence from you suddenly returned with a meaning he had never understood before, and for several seconds he simply stared at your name as the entire past rearranged itself inside his mind. Back then, he had interpreted your words through everything he had been told. Now he removed those outside voices and remembered the moment exactly as it happened. Your expression. Your hesitation. The emotion behind what you were trying to say. And suddenly he realized something shocking: perhaps you weren't closing the door at all. Perhaps you were waiting for him to understand what you couldn't fully explain at the time. Don't skip, because this realization made him question the one assumption that had influenced almost every decision afterward. He turned back toward her and repeated what you had once said. Her reaction told him instantly that she remembered it too. Stay till the end, because when he asked what she believed those words meant, she avoided his eyes. That tiny reaction was enough. He understood that she had seen another possibility all along but never shared it with him. Something huge is waiting for you, because the confrontation was no longer about discovering whether something had been hidden. He already knew that. Now he wanted to understand exactly how different everything might have been if he had heard the complete story from the beginning. For the first time, she admitted that she had underestimated how deeply your connection had stayed with him. She thought enough time would make the questions disappear. She believed new circumstances would eventually make you feel like a distant memory. But something unexpected happened instead. The unanswered questions became stronger because they never received closure. Don't skip, because he finally understood why certain memories of you returned at the strangest moments. It wasn't because he wanted to live in the past. It was because part of the story still didn't make sense, and now he knew why. He had been trying to finish a puzzle while someone else was holding several pieces. Stay till the end, because his next question left her completely unprepared. He asked, "If you had told me everything then, what did you think I would have done?" She couldn't answer immediately. But eventually she admitted the truth. She believed he would have gone back to you for answers. That sentence changed his entire expression. There it was. The reason beneath all the other reasons. She had feared an honest conversation because she knew an honest conversation might reconnect something that had never truly disappeared. Something huge is waiting for you, because instead of making him step away, her confession finally gave him permission to trust the questions he had been carrying for so long, and now the balance had completely changed. Earlier, she controlled the conversation because she possessed information he didn't have. But every revelation reduced that advantage until only one thing remained: his own decision. Don't skip, because he made that decision without asking anyone for approval. He would no longer accept someone else's interpretation of what you felt. If there was truth left between you, he wanted to hear it from you. If there was misunderstanding, he wanted clarity. And if the story had truly ended, he wanted that answer to come from reality, not from assumptions. Stay till the end, because as he prepared to reach out, she suddenly remembered one final detail and told him there was something else he needed to know first. Something she had kept completely separate from everything she had already admitted. He stopped again. She told him that long ago, before everything became complicated, you had done something quietly that he never knew about, something that proved you had understood his feelings more deeply than he realized. His eyes widened because this wasn't another opinion. This was something specific. Something real. Something huge is waiting for you, because when she finally explains what you did and why she kept it from him, he will realize that the moment he thought your connection ended may actually have been the moment you were waiting for him to choose it. The final detail changed the meaning of everything he thought he remembered. She admitted that there had been a moment when you quietly left the door open for him to speak honestly, but he never understood it that way. He had been carrying so many assumptions by then that he interpreted your silence as distance instead of uncertainty. Don't skip, because when she described that moment, he remembered it immediately. Every detail came rushing back: the timing, your carefully chosen words, and the strange feeling he had afterward that something important had been left unfinished. Now he understood why. You had given him an opportunity to ask the question he was afraid to ask, and instead of trusting what he felt, he trusted what he had heard from somewhere else. Stay till the end, because that realization affected him more than any confession she had made so far. He didn't become angry. He became clear. For the first time, he could see exactly where his own choices ended and outside influence began. He looked at her and asked why she never told him that you had left that possibility open. Her answer was painfully simple: she believed that if he knew, he would choose to find out what still existed between you. Something huge is waiting for you, because he finally responded with the sentence she had feared from the beginning: maybe I should have. But this wasn't about rushing backward into the past. Something deeper had changed. He finally understood that he had spent too much time asking everyone except you what your connection meant. Don't skip, because he now questioned every conclusion that had never come directly from you. He remembered moments when he wanted to contact you but stopped himself. He remembered convincing himself that silence meant you had forgotten. He remembered believing that too much time had passed. Yet none of those beliefs had ever been confirmed by the one person who could actually confirm them. You. Stay till the end, because he suddenly realized that the biggest secret wasn't simply what she had hidden, it was what her secrecy revealed about his own feelings. If you truly meant nothing to him, discovering all of this wouldn't have shaken him. If the connection had disappeared completely, he wouldn't still need answers. But here he was, standing at the edge of a truth he had avoided for far too long, finally admitting that part of him had always wondered about you. Something huge is waiting for you, because the third party could see that her confession had created the exact outcome she wanted to prevent. He wasn't becoming more uncertain about you. He was becoming more certain that he needed to hear your truth directly. Then everything became quiet. He looked down at your name one more time, and this time he didn't see an old chapter. He saw an unanswered question. Don't skip, because his next decision wasn't based on fantasy, pressure, or anyone else's expectations. It was simple.